when it comes to the way that we approach worship, there are a couple of historical ideas that we have about worship. Coming out of the Reformation, there were two main ideas. There was a Lutheran Anglican idea that was called the normative principle. And the normative principle of worship basically said that in our worship, and think about this, we're coming out of the Reformation, we understand worship from a Roman Catholic perspective, and we understand that theologically that's wrong, it's inappropriate, that's not what we're doing in worship. But what do we do? What do we let go of, and what do we keep? Well, from the Lutheran Anglican perspective, the idea was, in worship, we do those things that God prescribes in his word, plus anything that is not expressly prohibited. That's the Lutheran/Anglican idea. The Puritan idea was known as the regulative principle. And the regulative principle states that we can and must only incorporate in our worship those things that are expressly prescribed in Scripture and nothing else. Nothing else. Sam Waldron has illustrated it this way. It's as though Mr. Anglican and Mr. Puritan were going to build a building for God. And Mr. Puritan says, God has given us very specific blueprints, and we're going to build the building exactly as God's blueprint outlines it. And the Anglican says, we're going to use that blueprint, but we're going to put our own spin on it. The two will not build the same building. But that's not the worst thing. The worst thing is that one of those buildings is not going to please God. I told you we just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Let me illustrate it for you this way. Shared this with the students on Monday at the university. But imagine this. Imagine that the 30-year anniversary is coming up, and Bridget and I are celebrating our 30th anniversary, and this is huge. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, you don't understand, folks. This is huge. My wife and I, last two generations, both sides of our families, 25 marriages, 22 divorces. We done made 30 years in a row. It's big stuff, okay? And so, imagine 30th anniversary, and I'm going to give my wife a gift for our 30th anniversary. First of all, 30th anniversary, you don't give a gift, you give multiple gifts. For those of you who are wondering, when you get there, just hold on to that. And so there's going to be these multiple gifts. And there's a couple of ways that I can choose the gifts. One of the ways that I can choose the gifts is I can get a PhD in my wifeology and learn her and watch her and question her and listen to her and see what she likes and what makes her tick and try to figure that out, and then get a number of gifts. One gift that's a sure thing. I see this. I know you like this. And another gift that says I've investigated and asked some folks and they pointed me in this direction. And another gift that says both of those could have been wrong. So there's that. And so you give her those gifts. Or there's another way. I could say, you know, I really like watches. And I do. I really like watches. They don't necessarily have to be expensive watches. Sometimes just a watch with a story. But I like watches. I mean, watches, I'm passionate about watches. Passionate about watches, I'm passionate about Bridget. I'll get Bridget a watch. Why? You don't even have to be married to know that's wrong, right? Listen to me. That's the difference between regulative and normative worship. Normative worship says, this pleases me, I will give it to God as worship. Or worse yet, this pleases lost people, so we will give it to God as worship. Whereas regulative worship says, I will look and investigate and listen and hear exactly what God says He delights in worship, and I will give Him that. Because my starting point in worship is not God and what satisfies Him, but or not man and what satisfies Him, but God and what satisfies Him. And again, I said, this is not just wrong, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous. That's why we're in 2 Samuel chapter 6, where we see the danger of responding to God in ways that do not accord with His specific instructions for worship.